What up, party peeps? My name is Roby D, and one has to go. Let's get into it. So a couple of years ago, I completely switched to mirrorless. I started off with the Canon M50 and switched over to the Canon M50 Mark II, which is what I'm recording this on right now. And I also sold off some of my old DSLR gear to switch over to mirrorless cameras. My very first mirrorless full frame camera was the EOS R, and this is it here. As soon as I got it, fell in love with it, love the photos, everything about it. I really enjoy this camera. After a little bit, I wanted a second body just in case I'm doing a wedding or a photo shoot or of any kind. I always like to have two bodies. So the R6 came out and I immediately picked it up. All right, so the R6 and the R have been my two workhorses. These cameras have done an amazing job with capturing video, photography at every level. On the photography side, I've done weddings, portraits, senior sessions. I've done sports. These cameras have been great at everything I've thrown at them. And for video, I've also pushed these cameras to the limits. However, the Canon R6 Mark II was just released, and I don't have a need for 3 full frame cameras. So one of these has to go. Even while I'm recording this video, I'm leaning one way versus another. However, my mind is not decided. So what are the pros and cons of the current system, and what do I hope to improve? So for the Canon R, we'll start off with all the pros that I loved about this camera. I love the form factor. I like the buttons. I like the 30 megapixel sensor. I like just the look that comes off of this camera. What are the pros of the Canon R? Easy. It is the camera that I'm going to grab if I'm doing any kind of a photo shoot. So if I'm going out and I'm doing a wedding or a portrait session, a senior session, I'm grabbing the Canon EOS R and a couple of lenses, and this is my go-to camera for those sessions. Some of the cons of the EOS R are when it comes to the video. I love that the video in 4K doesn't overheat, which we'll talk about in the R6. Although I haven't had the heat warning, there's not a full frame 4K mode on the EOS R, and that to me is a little bit frustrating. Another con that I have about the EOS R is the face tracking isn't as fast or as robust as it is for the R6. My opinion is it actually sticks a little bit better on the R than the R6, but the R6 is much quicker to recognize the face, the eye, and track it and keep that tracking. So to be honest, my con list for the EOS R is relatively short. As you can tell, I really enjoy this camera, and as a photographer, this is the one that I would keep. Now, for the EOS R6, what are some things that I like about it and I don't? So the pros, this is my video camera setup. The 4K recording is amazing. I can do full frame recording. I can also do 4K 60. I can also do 120, although it's not going to be in 4K. At least I have an option on this body. Some other things that I really enjoy about this camera, as I kind of alluded to with the EOS R, this one does have amazing eye tracking. It will track the head, it will track the eye. I've had some weirdness where it jumps around a little bit. I've made some changes recently that seem to help, but I have had some weirdness on the R6 with it jumping around, and I think there's a firmware update that also corrected some of these issues. But for nailing the focus on the eye in video and photography, this thing is a beast. Another feature that I really like about the EOS R6 that I don't get in the R is I have multiple C-Log modes. On the R, we only have C-Log. On the R6, we have C-Log 3. So that's something to keep in mind as I move forward. With the R6 Mark II, it has C-Log and C-Log 3. So if I want to shoot C-Log 3 on multiple bodies, I would have to go towards the R6 route. Well, so what are some of the cons on the R6? My biggest one is it overheats. So although I have workarounds, I use the Ninja, so I don't actually record in body. I also open up the screen, which seems to help. And worst case scenario is I have to run a fan towards the back of it. That definitely fixes any overheating issues. It's a little bit irritating that the camera overheats just trying to do 4K 24p or 4K 30p. Another con is, although I do a lot of video and I've been doing more video lately, I still consider myself first a photographer. So the 20 megapixels on this camera is very limiting. I understand that Most people, they say, hey, 20 is enough and that's good. That's big enough for whatever size print. For me, it's frustrating. I prefer a larger megapixels. I'm not in the megapixel race. I don't think that megapixels matter as much as some people say they do. However, the way I shoot, sometimes I may shoot a little bit wide and want to crop in and post. Just like in 4K video, having the option to crop and reframe is something that I want to retain on the portrait side of things. When I'm shooting portraits, at times I may shoot it a little bit wider than I want to, or I need to straighten out, or maybe I just want to come up with a completely different composition than I originally shot. And only having 20 megapixels, you're very limited with those options. Going to 24 or 30 as the R does may be a better option in certain cases. So why upgrade to the Canon R6 Mark II? Well, there's a couple of things. The R6 Mark II has a slightly higher megapixel count. We're at 24 megapixels versus 20, but not quite to the 30 of the R. Canon reports that we could shoot up to 4K 30 with no overheating. 4K 60 has a 40-minute time limit, I understand, but I don't do a lot of 4K 60. So one of my biggest reasons for wanting to upgrade and go on to the Mark II is actually the same reason I was considering the Canon R7. No time limit. For years, every Canon mirrorless or DSLR has had a 30-minute time limit. In fact, if you go back to my Canon 5D Mark II, it had a 12-minute time limit. So the camera I'm on right now, I'm looking at the timer and I'm counting down how much time do I have before I need to finish this video. There's times that I just want to be able to turn the camera on, hit record, and let it go, and not have to worry about when an unmonitored camera is going to turn off in the middle of a video shoot. Now, this isn't a huge deal. I've dealt with it for years. Normally for my video sessions, I'm kind of roaming around and paying attention. So for the Canon R6, I use a Ninja, and that will just go for hours as long as there's room on the SSD card. But it would be nice to be able to have a smaller setup that maybe I could rig up in a higher position and just get a top-down shot, hit the record button, and not have to worry about it. Which way am I going to go? I'm pretty sure the Canon R6 is going to go. All right, so the R6 is great in most situations. It actually fits the bill in almost everything that I need to do or want to do. But there are two areas where I have to say I'm a little let down. And one is its tendency to overheat in certain situations. And two, the 20 megapixel sensor. I knew about both of these things when I bought the camera. I didn't know how big of a deal it was going to be. And honestly, I was hoping that Canon was going to do a much better job with firmwares and fixing the overheating issue. But the Canon R honestly still fits my needs a little bit better. If I'm traveling and I'm going out of town and I'm going to take a camera with me, it's going to be the R. Unfortunately, the R6 stays at home. Now, I'm still a little bit undecided. I'm pretty sure my mind is made up, however. If I was to choose today, the R would stay and the R6 would go and make room for the R6 Mark II. Now, I don't know if I'll ever get rid of my EOS R. It does a really good job in almost every situation. If Canon updated this thing to have full frame 4K, it'll probably be the perfect camera. The EOS R is this is a great camera. What do you guys think? Should I keep the EOS R? Should I keep the R6? Or neither? Should I sell them both and just buy two new Canon EOS R6 Mark IIs? No, that's not going to happen. So you guys let me know in the comments below. What do you guys think? Which way would you go? And thanks for watching. God bless. Take care.